We begin with the state's insurance company of last resort, Citzens. It continues to divert tens of thousands of homeowners to other insurance carriers. Currently, Citzens insures just over 777,000 policies. That's down from 1.4 million at its peak. Insurance reform in recent years has led to more insurance coming back into Florida, and they say spreading the risk, but at what cost? Take a look.
A new investigation reveals that homeowners insured through Citzens property insurance are losing more than 90% of claim disputes. The reason? A state-run arbitration system established by law that routes nearly all disputes into a forum funded by Citzens itself. The investigation was done by ProPublica, an independent nonprofit news organization. Supporters claim that arbitration is faster and cheaper than court. Homeowners who went through the process tell a different story. They face mounting repair bills denied by their claim, legal fees, and the stress of watching their homes deteriorate while waiting for resolution. Critics also argue the process strips homeowners of basic legal rights, limits discovery, and tilts the system in favor of the insurer. A Tampa judge temporarily halted the process for now, citing potential violations of state constitutional rights, including access to courts and due process.
Tara, as the attorney on the panel, I'd like to start with you. Explain what critics are saying is a lack of key rights that you would get otherwise in a regular court case. What exactly are they talking about?
Let's get to that, but first let's just acknowledge the fact that there's always been tension in the state of Florida between the insurance companies and Florida families. And that's exasperated by seeing more industry professionals lobbying at Tallahassee than Florida families. And it's very frustrating for Florida families, especially when you're working 2 to 3 jobs to cover your home insurance. But when you secure your home insurance, and you're using Citzens, it's the insurer of last resort. So usually you have no other choice. So you're signing on to a contract to insure your home that abrogates some really key judicial protections. I think we all can agree that we want government efficiency, but not at the cost of simple fairness and judicial protections. And that's what that issue right here. There are procedural motions that you can utilize in a regular court of law that are denied in arbitration. There is the ability to withdraw from the case. And in this case, under this new statutory law, you actually can't withdraw without having to pay Citzens court costs. And so these are simple sort of procedural due process protections that you have in a traditional court of law that you're not enjoying while you're trying to work through the conflict of losing everything that you have, and that you're actually only insured by the insurer of last resort. So there's no wonder that Florida families are so frustrated. But this is a great opportunity for the state legislature to be what they call the laboratory of democracies, be nimble. And, you know, I think Mike and I were talking before about what the Florida legislature could do to really help undo what I think was a good idea, but has really done Florida families wrong.
And Mike, so many people think that it's the work that legislators have done in the past, specifically during the 2023 session, that have created some of the problems that we're seeing now. What is your
well, in
take
2023, the Florida legislature added an amendment to a bill at the last minute on the Florida Senate. I think it was a Senate, not unusual for the legislature to do that, that allows now Citzens to do what they're doing. Citzens is actually paying the DOA judges to make these decisions. Now, if a DOA judge wants to continue working and continue getting paid, they're going to probably lean towards those that are paying them. And unfortunately, in this case that we see, in fact, many cases, those DOA judges are leaning and giving Citzens the win and the consumer the loss. And this consumer has nowhere else to go. Nowhere else to go. And they're in Citzens because there's no other insurance company that will insure that home. That's totally unfair to the homeowner. I think the legislature needs to readdress this, come back next session, which begins in January, of course, and relook at what they did, the mistake they made.
And for the person who's at home and listening to this and not sure what DOA is, we want to make sure that we explain that Florida Division of Administrative Hearings, it's comprised of judges who specialize in the administration, the law.
That's correct.
Instead of going to a jury, then you have a judge who specializes in procedures going through it.
Yes, and the homeowner in their contract clearly states that you're going to have to go through one of these judges instead of taking citizens to court. So this is what happens in the end. And as Tara said earlier, that sometimes it's better for the homeowner just to back away, but citizens won't allow them to back away. They want to keep them in there and force them to pay for the expenses that Citizens is putting out. So in the end, some of the homeowners are actually getting a bill for Citizens for not going forward with the case.
They're not only not getting their insurance that they've paid for, they're having to pay for Citizens' legal costs, which
it's wild. It's unbelievable what's going on in the States.
You know, if you're a voter in Florida, I hope you're paying attention to this conversation, because this is what, as you both have mentioned, what the legislature should be doing and has not done and will not do. We've gotten very good in Florida in terms of banning books. But, you know, we have state legislators who are, one of whom is now the lieutenant governor. And his answer to the whole issue was to delete climate change from state statute. Problem solved. Well, we're paying the price for these things right now, and you know, the Citzens Insurance is part of all the problems that we have, but it's not being fixed in the state legislature, and it won't be fixed until legislators start losing their jobs, because it's not.
Regardless of what side of the political aisle you're on, so many homeowners after last year's hurricane season are saying it is time to bring back some common sense into this discussion about insurance reform, and being able to take your case before a court and have them be able to look at the data and look at the facts. I mean, this information that's coming out is made possible because of this ProPublica. Also, the Florida Sun-Sentinel did an investigation. They looked specifically at more than 1,500 cases that went to that final hearing.
And what was the percentage?
90%.
90%, yes.
90%
where
of
the
them.
homeowner was losing and Citizens was winning.
And it's about 50% if they use the traditional judicial process. But there's hope, because we have judges who are pinpointing those judicial protections that should go with you no matter what process you have.
Let me turn this to the political one more time, because the candidate out there running for governor or running for state legislature that makes this issue their cause is going to be rewarded for it.
Let's hope it's a bipartisan issue, because then
I
Florida
think it
families
is.
can benefit.
We're seeing Republicans, and I've spoken to them, they're not happy with what has transpired. And I'm hoping that when the session comes up next year that they'll go ahead and take this language out.
Alan, I'm going to ask you to take off your political pundit hat for a minute and reach out for your journalism hat. You were a journalist, investigative journalist for so many years. This information is coming out because of what these two media companies were able to do, really dig deep into these cases. And in one of the cases, in one of the aspects of the data that they looked at, they said that so many of the cases, more than half, they were ruled not just in favor of Citizens, but that the payout that Citizens gave was $500.
I mean, incredible reporting, and it underscores how important journalism is, but it should also be noted, if you're talking about ProPublica or the Florida Sentinel, I believe, they
Florida
are both
Sun-Sentinel, yes.
nonprofit organizations. So this is not being done by commercial journalism, which it should be, which I love doing. This is the kind of story that I would be all over. But we have a crisis in terms of journalism, in terms of the ability of mainstream news organizations to look at complicated issues without fear and favor and report on it in a credible sort of way.
And also to invest in
Yes.
seasoned investigative reporters.
Yeah.
Doing it the more superficial way is much cheaper for our news organizations.